The old man sat alone in his armchair, the tick of a dusty clock on the mantel the only sound in his too-quiet house. At 72, Walter Grayson had lived a full life, decades as a clockmaker, his hands once nimble enough to coax life back into broken gears. But now, retired and widowed, the days stretched long and empty like a clock wound down with no one to reset it. Every morning he brewed a single cup of coffee, the bitter steam curling under his nose, and sat by the window, watching neighbors pass without a glance. His one quirk, a habit from brighter days, was to hum old jazz tunes under his breath, Ella Fitzgerald's velvet voice still echoing in his mind, though he hadn't touched his record player in years. The notes felt hollow now, a faint reminder of a life that once ticked in rhythm. Walter's loneliness wasn't loud. It was the soft ache of a house too still, the creak of floorboards under his slow steps, the chill of a kitchen table set for one. He'd always been a quiet man, content to let his clock speak for him, their steady beats a kind of poetry. But without his workshop, without his wife Clara's laughter to fill the gaps, he felt like a stranger in his own skin. He'd tried joining a book club once, but the chatter felt forced and he slipped away after one meeting, unnoticed. The world seemed to move on without him, and he wondered if he'd ever find a place in it again. One gray November morning, as frost traced the edges of his window, Walter noticed a young boy struggling with a bicycle across the street. The chain had slipped, and the boy, maybe 10, with a too-big jacket and a frustrated scowl, kicked at the tire in defeat. Walter hesitated, his coffee cooling in his hands. Something stirred in him, a flicker of the old clockmaker's instinct to fix what was broken. He pulled on his coat, the wool scratching his neck, and stepped outside, the cold biting his knuckles. "Need a hand, son?" he called, his voice rusty from disuse. The boy, Tommy, looked up, wary but desperate. Walter knelt beside the bike, his knees creaking, and showed Tommy how to ease the chain back onto the gears. His fingers, though stiff, remembered the work, and the chain clicked into place with a satisfying snap. Tommy's face lit up, a grin splitting his freckled cheeks. "You're like a wizard," he said, and Walter chuckled, the sound surprising even himself. As Tommy pedaled off, shouting thanks, Walter felt a warmth he hadn't known in years, like a clock spring tightening just enough to tick again. That small act cracked something open in Walter. The next day he saw Tommy again, this time with a flat tire. Walter fetched his old toolbox, the leather handle worn smooth from years of use, and patched the tire while Tommy peppered him with questions about clocks and gears. Soon, other kids gathered, drawn by Tommy's chatter about the bike guy. Walter started fixing their bikes in his garage, the smell of grease and rubber filling the air, mingling with the faint must of old cardboard boxes. He taught them how to tighten bolts, pump tires, and oil chains, his voice growing steadier with each lesson. The kids' laughter bounced off the walls, and Walter found himself humming again, Ella's "Summertime," soft and low, without even realizing it. Word spread. Parents stopped by, grateful, bringing cookies or casseroles that warmed Walter's kitchen. One woman, Maria, asked if he could fix her son's skateboard, and soon Walter's garage became a hub of clatter and chatter. He listened as kids shared stories of schoolyard fights or dreams of being astronauts, and parents confided worries about bills or sick relatives. Walter didn't say much, but he nodded, his gray eyes kind, and somehow that was enough. He started, leaving his front door unlocked, a small gesture that felt like a leap, and the neighborhood seemed to exhale, as if it had been waiting for someone to turn the key. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the garage in gold, Tommy handed Walter a drawing, a crayon sketch of an old man with a wrench, surrounded by smiling kids and bikes. "It's you," Tommy said, shy but proud. Walter's throat tightened and he blinked hard, tracing the wobbly lines with a trembling finger. He hung the drawing above his workbench, where it caught the light each morning. That night he dusted off his record player, the needle crackling as Ella's voice filled the house, warm and alive. He sat back, coffee in hand, and for the first time in years the chair didn't feel so empty. Walter's days found rhythm again. He organized a bike repair day at the community center, the lot buzzing with kids, parents, and even a few grandparents who shared his quiet smile. The air smelled of hot dogs and fresh paint, and the sound of bells and laughter rang like music. Walter moved among them, his hands steady, his hums blending with the chatter. He wasn't just fixing bikes, he was mending something deeper, in them and in himself. The loneliness that had clung to him like damp wool was unraveling, thread by thread replaced by the warmth of faces that knew his name. As winter thawed into spring, Walter looked out his window, not at a world passing by, but at one he belonged to. He thought of Clara, how she'd have loved this, and hummed her favorite tune, feeling her near. The neighborhood had become his workshop, each person a gear and a clock he'd helped set ticking. And as he watched Tommy race by on his bike, shouting, "See ya, Mr. Walter," he realized something simple yet profound. Kindness, like a well-made clock, keeps time in ways you never expect, winding hearts back to life. What small act could wind your world back to life? Who's waiting for your key to turn?